Caleb heard a quiet rustle and immediately woke up. He quickly got up and walked over to his mother. "How are you, Mother? Do you want something? Maybe some water?" "No, Sonny, no. Go back to bed and sleep. You've been tired from taking care of me." "Come on, Mom. How can you say that? Let me lift you up like this. Now I'll fix the pillow and you'll be fine. Do you want me to read to you?" Caleb's wife, Audrey, showed up at the door. "Are you going to bed? It's 3:30 in the morning. How are you going to work tomorrow?" "Audrey, I forgot to tell you, but I took a leave of absence without pay." Hearing this, Audrey exploded with indignation. "Are you crazy? What are we going to live on?" "We still have money," Caleb said quietly. And coming up to his wife, he whispered, "Can you at least show some respect for my mother? You see, she does not have much time left. So, maybe you want us all to starve to death too?" A disgruntled Audrey wouldn't let up. "Shut up. Get out of my sight. You don't understand what you're saying." Caleb pushed his wife out the door and with a weary sigh returned to his mother's bed. In the meantime, Audrey, with a contemptuous sniffle, went into the bedroom. She was furious that Caleb had brought his mother to their apartment. They were already limited in space with 2 children, and now they had to give an entire room to the sick old woman. She should have lived out her life in the village. Anyway, what could she give them? Her house was old, only good for demolition, and the neighborhood was not in popular demand. Audrey pushed away her thoughts and listened. Her husband was reading something aloud to her mother, pausing only when she was having a bad cough. Audrey cringed. She'd never liked her mother-in-law. And what was there to love her for? She was just an ordinary countrywoman. When they lived in her village, her mother-in-law constantly pestered her with her obsessive care. "Eat more, you're so thin. Here's a warm shawl for you. I knitted it myself. Drink goat's milk." Yuck, what an abomination. Audrey shrugged her shoulders. She had lived all her life in the city, and she found country life extremely unpleasant. But Caleb was not like that. He gladly helped his mother with the household chores, could milk the goat himself, and didn't worry about the inconvenience. Worry about the lack of comforts. It cost Audrey a lot of trouble to get him out of there. They rented an apartment, and soon Audrey became pregnant with her first child, then her second. Caleb always took care of her, loved the little ones, but did not forget to visit his mother several times a month. Audrey's parents laughed at their daughter. "You found yourself a mama's boy, and now you're suffering. But we told you you should have married Walter. He's still interested in your life." "Mom, enough about Walter. By the way, how is he? How does he look? What does he do?" "He's a police captain. What can I say? He lives well, has a nice car, and an apartment downtown." Audrey's thoughts were interrupted by a new attack of her mother-in-law's coughing. She lay down on the bed and reached for the nightstand. Somewhere there were earplugs. A month passed. Caleb was returning from the pharmacy when he saw an ambulance outside his house. Mom flashed in his mind and he ran to the entrance. Yes, Audrey had called the doctors. "As soon as you left, your mother had a seizure and I didn't want to waste any time." Caleb spent 2 days in the hospital with his mother, and on the 3rd day, she passed away. Before she died, the mother asked her son, "This will seem strange to you, son, but do what I ask. Do you remember the red currant bush on the porch? Dig it up and plant it on my grave. Birds will come and sing and peck the berries. Please do it, son." The son held her hand, and she weakly tried to shake his palm one last time, reminding him of the promise he had made to her. Only some time later, Caleb was able to dial his wife's phone number, but it was unavailable. Then the grief-stricken man called her parents. They sympathized with Caleb, but they did not know where Audrey was. She had brought the children to us the day before yesterday and left somewhere. Caleb went home. He had to organize the funeral, and knowing that there was no one to help him, he did everything himself. Those days dragged on for Caleb. Audrey never returned, and the children were still living with her parents. The man paced from room to room, unable to find peace with his anxiety. Only now did he begin to notice that something was wrong in the apartment. Finally, Caleb realized what his wife's mother had been trying to tell him. Things were missing. Everything else was there. Suddenly, he understood that she had left, abandoned him at such a difficult moment. Well, good riddance. Now Caleb felt not only emptiness but also resentment. Yet he had hardly devoted himself to his family lately, but he couldn't have it any other way. He actually loved and respected his mother. He remembered how she had saved every tidbit for him, denying herself. How she would stay with him when he was sick, comfort him when he was troubled by childhood problems, and he paid her back in kind. He could not do otherwise. He never wanted to see Audrey again, but soon she came back. However, only to throw Caleb out of the house, and he was looking at her and didn't recognize her. She became aggressive and feisty. Audrey reproached him that her parents had given her money for the apartment, that she was fed up with him, that he was a poor mama's boy, and now she was going to have a completely different life with another man who had loved her all her life. So Caleb left. He went to his mother's house to recuperate a little and think about his next plan. The vacation was ending, and it was time to go to work. At first, Caleb decided to rent an apartment somewhere not far from his work. But suddenly he thought, why not stay here in his native village? In the city, he worked as a therapist, and surely he could find a job in this or neighboring villages. Caleb went out and sat on the porch, still thinking about this unexpected idea. Suddenly, his gaze fell on a currant bush. Oh, Mummy, don't be angry. I remember your last request. In the next morning, he went out with the shovel and set to work. As he pulled the bush toward him, something glistened underneath it. A tin. How did it get here? Caleb took the tin in his hands and went into the house. He opened it with difficulty. Inside, there was a small box wrapped in a white cloth. There were gold jewelry and a few diamonds inside it. Caleb, numb with amazement, looked at this treasure. Then he remembered something. His mother had told him about her grandmother, who was a hereditary noblewoman. He knew the story of her jewelry, which had not been found when she was arrested. How his mother got the box, and why she didn't use the valuables herself, Caleb didn't know, and no one could tell him anymore. Caleb thought gratefully of his mother, then put the currant in the car, took it to the cemetery, and planted it where she had asked. Although he was sure that her request was nothing more than a simple and long-ago devised ruse. A few months after the divorce, Caleb bought an apartment downtown. Eventually, he returned to work in the city, continued his practice, and began dating his colleague Teresa, a kind and intelligent woman. Caleb saw the children every day, and soon they told him that they were now living with their grandparents again, because they did not like Walter at all. When Caleb heard this, he immediately suggested that the children move in with him, and the boys gladly agreed. Fortunately, his ex-wife was only happy about it, and Teresa quickly found a common language with the boy, and somehow, imperceptibly, they became a close-knit family. Caleb was no longer interested in Audrey's fate. 10 years passed. Caleb's sons went to college. Teresa and Caleb had a son and daughter together. One day, when Caleb was on night duty at the hospital, he was called to see a newly arrived patient. To Caleb's surprise, it turned out to be Audrey's mother. The man knew that the former mother-in-law lived her life alone. Her husband had passed away 3 years ago, and today she felt unwell and could hardly reach the phone to call an ambulance. Caleb did his best to relieve the woman's suffering. He often stopped by to check on her and see if she was getting better. Audrey's mother suddenly turned to him and said, "I want to ask for your forgiveness for everything. It was me who ruined your family. I constantly told Audrey that she deserved better. I mocked you for taking care of your mother, and now I envy her. She died happy. I have a different fate, and I deserved it. Audrey is completely forgotten about me. She doesn't need me, and when her father was ill, she didn't come to see him either. I wish you happiness, and please forgive me if you can." Caleb replied, "Let's not dwell on the past. It's like you're saying goodbye to me. Trust me, it's a little early for that. You are so kind, Caleb. And how are my grandchildren? They are studying, and both already in college, all grown up. Soon they'll come for the weekend and definitely visit you." Caleb smiled. They talked some more. Then Caleb saw that the medicine began to work, and the unhappy woman fell asleep. The treatment and Caleb's kind participation in her fate quickly put the woman back on her feet. She was soon discharged, but for his peace of mind, the former son-in-law hired a nurse for her. Caleb celebrated his 50th birthday in his mother's old house. He had long ago repaired it, and now the whole extended family was happy to gather under its roof, especially in the summer. Caleb invited even his former mother-in-law, who was very touched by this. It is not in vain, people say, that a good deed never goes to waste. Whoever sows politeness reaps friendship. Whoever plants kindness reaps a harvest of love. Have a good day, and may you be surrounded by good people.